to another edition of the In Search SEO podcast, where we paint the town red with search marketing insights. Awesome. Great guest for you today. I have been waiting for this one for quite a bit. The great Jessica Levenson will be joining us to talk about how to actually do what we say we ought to do when trying to create targeted content. How to take the dream of targeted content and then actually write it. How to make sure your content actually aligns to your targeted audience, and where targeted content is heading as SEO evolves. But before that, we put Google's relationships on the couch as the search engine has taken yet another entity understanding advancement. I am your host, Mordy Oberstein. I am joined by the impeccable, the devastating Sapir Carabello.
Oh, Morty. I actually like this introduction.
Devastating?
Devastating. Impeccable. Like, it's so true.
You are devastating. That can be taken a lot of ways.
I'll take
How
it as
should we
positive.
take it? You do that.
Yeah.
You do that. You
Yeah.
take it as a positive.
Yeah, I'll take
Good
it.
for you. How are you? Have you been?
I've
Do
been
not
okay.
forget. I'm joking. Have you been?
Yeah, I've been good.
That's good.
Have you been?
Same as always. Crotchety old man. All right. All right. Do not forget, we put out a new episode of the In Search SEO podcast each and every Tuesday. You can find it on Spotify. You can find it on SoundCloud. You can find it on Stitcher. You can find it on the Rank Ranger blog. And of course, you may and should subscribe on iTunes. You can probably find it anywhere podcasts are sold or offered.
So check it out.
Yeah, check it out. You already are checking it out. You're listening. But yeah, do what Sapir said. Also, new to Rank Ranger, WooCommerce data. You can now integrate WooCommerce with Rank Ranger, create custom graphs with the data compared to any other data within Rank Ranger, and a hell of a lot of other things. And then you can place all of those graphs inside a 100% white label dashboard. I am not messing with you. It's really 100% white label because you can manipulate the HTML and CSS. So head over to rankranger.com, sign up for a 14-day free trial, no credit card necessary, because we're not gimmicky, and let the good times roll. Let the good times roll. You don't know that song,
I
do
don't.
you?
No.
Yeah, figured. All right, great show for you today. We'll get to Jessica Levenson in just a bit because I want to show you something funky about entity advancement.
Okay, now I'm scared.
Yes, get ready because here comes some funky SEO for you.
Banging out the funky beats.
We want the funk. Give up the funk.
Not again.
I told you every time we do this segment I'm going to say that.
Oh my god.
Should we harp on this? Should we talk about the fact that you don't understand who George Clinton is? Whatever.
Just leave me alone.
On the 4th of the month known as February, our dear friend Sir Barry the Schwartz reported on a new See the Connection button in the Knowledge panel.
Sir Barry the Schwartz. Really, Morty?
Yes.
Okay.
The Schwartz.
The
May the
Schwartz.
Schwartz be with you.
Oh, God.
You don't know where that's from either?
I know, Star Wars.
No, Spaceballs. May the Schwartz be with you.
I don't know.
That was a big deal for me as a kid because my stepfamily's last name is Schwartz. So every so often, may the Schwartz be with you. No, I am not related to Barry Schwartz.
Nice.
Even though my
know,
stepfamily's
okay.
last name is Schwartz. Although I am related to Eli Schwartz as my first cousin.
No one cares.
No one knows. I care because I like him.
Okay, move on.
All right. Anyway. So I want to talk to you about this.
Yeah.
See the Connection button in the Knowledge panel that was spotted.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So let me explain what it is first, maybe.
Yeah.
Because it's an audio experience and I can't say, here, see it. So I have to describe it.
Thank you, Morty.
Which just makes me more talented than I'm able to do that. I'm getting, for those not here in the room with us, I am getting the look of death. Anyway, so let's say you search for a celebrity. Let's take Terry Bradshaw.
Who?
Famous Steelers quarterback. Is in a bunch of movies. Major personality, hilarious guy. Check him
I
out.
have no
Okay,
idea.
let's take somebody we all know.
Thank you. Yeah.
O.J. Simpson. You search for O.J. And in the people also search box carousel thing, you'll see other entities. Nicole Brown, which you will see there.
Oh, God.
Yes. And you click on that person, in this case, Nicole, and you get Nicole's knowledge panel. Right? Well, Google has begun showing a tab above the main panel that says, See the Connection. So you went from OJ to Nicole, and now Google says, See the Connection.
Oh.
That's terrible.
Oh, it's awful.
By the way, Google is not showing the connection button for OJ and Nicole.
Oh, seriously?
No, that would be horrible.
It might happen in the future, though.
Oh, that'd be terrible. Okay, the example Barry gave is for two people I have no idea who they are. You would probably know who they are. You search for someone. The example was someone who searched for French Montana.
It's a singer.
I have no idea.
I think so. Yeah, it's
He's
a singer.
not French and he's not from Montana, so I have no idea. Rhode Island, neither a road nor an island. Discuss. And then someone searched for French Montana, and it still worked. You can check it out yourself. Okay. And they clicked on DJ Khaled.
DJ Khaled.
Whatever. You young people.
Oh, Morty.
I just dated myself. Okay. You clicked on this DJ Khaled guy?
Khaled.
DJ Khaled guy?
Yeah.
From the people also search for. And above the Good DJs panel, which you're now redirected to once you clicked on his face, there is a button that says See the Connection. And when you click on that, okay, that expands this tab, which shows you a featured snippet explaining to you how this Montana guy and the DJ guy are connected.
Oh, sweet.
Right? Yeah, that's pretty cool. It's great.
Yeah.
Worthy of a podcast? I don't know. But there's more to this. So have patience, young Padawan.
Young what?
Young Padawan. That's Ewan now I can't get anybody's name right. Ewan McGregor.
Yeah.
You know who he is?
Yeah.
Okay, so he was in the first Star Wars prequel.
Yeah.
And the other guy, played by Liam Neeson, says, "Patience, young Padawan." It's a famous line. It means like patience, young learner.
Okay.
Yeah, just patience, all right? Okay. The reason why I'm telling you to be patient is because this is not the first time Google has actually done this. The mobile knowledge panel is not the only way to access this connection entity thing.
Okay. What
you could also do, and there's a bunch of like really big implications to this that we can get into, or maybe not. We'll see how time goes. And by the way, the implication that I want to talk to you about, if the time allows, is not, oh, Google's taking over everything with their SERP features. Because that's what we say every time Google does something. Oh, the implication of Google showing you the See the Connection button is that Google's taking over everything. Turn your brain on and stop saying cliches for 5 minutes, because there are actually real implications besides Google's taking over everything.
Okay, wait. So what are the other implications then?
Okay, you want to get to that first?
Yeah.
Fine. Okay, so let's do it like this. Let me run through this.
Okay.
So there's another way to access this.
Okay.
This connection thing. Remember a couple of weeks ago we were going through the top 100 greatest musical artists of all time, and you didn't know who Tom Petty was?
I still don't know who he is.
Okay. So that, your ignorance got me in a mood to listen to Tom Petty.
Okay.
Okay, great. One of his greatest
My
jams,
impact.
your ignorance, is called Into the Great Wide Open. It's a famous Tom Petty song, and I'm sitting there watching this thing on YouTube, the music video, and because his videos are awesome, by the way.
Okay.
And I'm like, wait. Is that Johnny Depp? Like, old. I couldn't recognize him because, like, old.
In a music video?
Yeah.
Okay.
Because it was old Johnny Depp. Like, not the Johnny Depp who looks like.
The hot Johnny Depp.
Right. Not the Johnny Depp who looks like, the Greenwich Village Halloween Parade and Death Collided.
No.
At like 100 miles an hour. And that's what he looks like now. Like, like the 21 Jump Street Johnny Depp.
Okay.
And just for like a second. I wasn't like watching it religiously. I was like, looking at it, doing some other things. I'm like, oh, that's Johnny Depp, right? I'm not sure.
I used to have such a crush on him when I was young.
When you were
when I was
so
younger.
when you were 8? That's weird.
Yeah, I was like,
okay. Anyway, I searched to see if that really was Johnny Depp.
Okay.
I searched literally for
Tom
Petty, Johnny Depp, just like that.
Okay.
Okay, and I got an Explore panel. Panel.
Yeah.
Thank you. Which you may know better as the right-hand side featured snippet.
Right.
On desktop. And the header was Tom Petty, Johnny Depp, just like that.
Oh.
Amazing. And the panel goes into the very music video that I was talking about. Pretty good, Google.
Yeah, pretty good, but I'm not sure if it's, podcast worthy.
You young people, all action and no build up. Oh, that's a dirty joke. Okay. The fact that the format was an Explorer panel is very significant.
And why is that?
Because it wasn't a feature snippet. Okay, because the Explore panel is a combination of featured snippet and knowledge panel, meaning, before you ask me, meaning the content is entity-centric. Okay, in other words, the use of Explore panel means Google knows that Johnny Depp and Tom Petty together are an entity. Meaning Google, this is the implication, you ready?
Yeah.
Google knows relationships per se as entities. And that's freaking huge.
Yeah, when you put it like that, I guess it is.
Oh, that's right. Ridiculous. Okay, in other words,
Yeah.
we always knew Google knew the connection between two entities. That part of entities A's identity was its connection to entity B. But now Google knows in certain cases the relationship itself is an entity. And that relationship is a sub-entity formed by the merger of two other entities, which is why you get an Explore panel. Because the Explore panel shows for very focused topics that fall under another entity's identity. For example, one of the early cases I saw of an Explore panel, I don't think it shows anymore for this, but it used to show for JFK space race. You would get an Explore panel.
Oh.
You don't know history. JFK was the person who pushed for America to really get to the moon.
Ah.
Yeah.
Good for him.
Yes. Okay, so the space race and JFK's role in it form its own very, specific sliver of an overall entity. And that's why you get the Explore panel. That's what Explore panels show for these very focused, very nuanced, sliver of overall entities. So in this case, the relationship of Johnny Depp in this music video was one small sliver of Tom Petty and Johnny Depp's overall identity, and that's why you get the Explore panel.
Oh.
Okay. To cap all of this off, by the way, the people also search for in this Explore panel and Johnny Depp and Tom Petty are other entity connections, other entity combinations, like Tom Petty and Cindy Crawford. Ooh. Tom Petty and Elvis. Ooh. Meaning Google knows what's related as other relationships. There's what other it's looking at the entity from a completely relationship perspective. Again, the relationship is the entity here.
Okay.
So I have been racking my brain trying to figure out what's the implication of how is Google going to use this to evaluate sites?
What do you have?
It's been a hard one. It could be they use this to start to determine the site as a way of determining a site's identity. Let me explain. It's a very raw idea, so just bear with me and have forgiveness.
Do.
Yeah, you always have forgiveness. And I see this more for commerce sites, because in commerce sites you have a meeting of two different entities, like Johnny Depp and Tom Petty. You have the product and the site. Okay,
right.
So there's the product and this. Scratch reverse. The site that's selling that particular product gets its identity, its relative identity from the product that it's selling, right?
Right.
Okay, that sort of makes sense. It could be that the more specific the product, the stronger the identity. So think about it like this. You're going to a doctor. You can go to a general practitioner, or you can go to a specialist, say a throat specialist, okay? The fact that the doctor is related to this very specific niche of medicine, throat, gives that doctor an identity. He's not just a doctor. Let's scratch that again. They're not just a doctor. They're a throat doctor. So the specific product that they're peddling, in this case, throat health, lends to their overall identity. Okay, so the more specific the product or service you're offering, the more specific your identity is.
Right.
Okay? Now, if we're saying that a product and a site, their relationship could be understood as an entity now. And so that means, and I wonder if Google will use this to give sites that have a very specific niche product focus preference, at least alongside of sites like Amazon or whatever that offer a bunch of different products. So let's say you're looking for a toilet.
Okay.
You need toilets. Everyone needs toilets.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let's say you're looking to buy a new toilet.
Okay.
What's wrong with that?
It's an interesting example.
Yes.
Okay. I'll go with it.
I am a 4-year-old. My mind immediately goes to potty humor.
Oh my god. Yeah.
Okay, so maybe if Google's going to say, okay, well, now we can understand the relationship as an entity itself, maybe we'll show, if I buy new toilet, sites that only sell new toilets, as opposed to a used toilet, only new toilets. over sites that sell a variety of plumbing supplies,
Okay.
like toilets and sinks, like Amazon might. So I don't know. Can you order a toilet from Amazon? That's interesting. Separate note. Check that out. I'm wondering if that's maybe a possible implication of how Google might use its relationship as an entity understanding to relate to sites.
Mm-hmm.
And that's all I have for now.
That's interesting. I guess we will wait and see.
Yep.
Yeah.
Uh-huh. So, from selling toilets
Nice.
to the great SEO whose team she roots for deserves to be flushed down a toilet. Let me give you some...
I see what you did there.
Yeah, see that?
Yeah.
All right. Let me give you some little... let me preface this interview.
Oh, God.
I am a Pittsburgh Steelers fan. I'm a New York Yankees fan for baseball.
Okay.
Both sides of me, whether it be my New York fandom for baseball or my Pittsburgh fandom for football, have one common denominator, and that is hate. And I don't use that word lightly, and I mean it, hate for, I don't really hate them, for Boston sports teams.
Okay.
Jessica is a rabid Boston sports fan.
Okay.
And we spend much time on Twitter trolling each other about our sports teams.
Lovely.
So we're going to get into it.
Okay.
So just be ready
Can't
for that.
wait, yeah.
Yes. I, of course, have
I'm
the
gonna mute.
No,
I'm kidding.
No,
Kidding.
we don't mute this podcast.
Okay.
Thank you. Anyway, from selling toilets to a team to an SEO whose teams deserve to be flushed down a toilet.
Yeah.
Here's Jessica Levenson and how to actually do what we say we want to do when it comes to targeting audiences with content. And oh, Jessica, the Red Sox suck. And the Patriots suck even more. Cut one. Welcome to another In Search SEO podcast interview session. Today, our Women in Search interview series continues with a renowned industry speaker, a highly regarded SEO strategist. You can find her as part of Search Engine Journal's new ebook on 2020 trends in SEO. She is Jessica Levenson. Welcome.
Hey, thanks for having me. I'm really excited to be here.
I'm really excited that you're here because you are a Boston sports fan, and there's nothing I detest more than Boston sports. So we were supposed to do this podcast interview a week ago, and my internet was messed up, your nose was messed up, and I said I'd work on new material to troll you with. So I have to ask you, are you a Bernie Madoff fan?
No.
That's surprising because your whole city is full of cheaters. From Bill Belichick to Alex Cora.
Whether I refrain or go forward with what I usually say to you.
Oh, that's true. Okay, so we go back and forth on Twitter all the time. I am a Steelers fan, and our current quarterback, has a colorful past of all sorts of accusations. So no matter how much I troll Jessica about her New England Patriots football team and how much they cheat, I always lose that battle. But as a Yankee fan, I can't lose the battle of your team cheating by calling signs. So I win that battle.
It's true. I got to come up with something better about the Yankees to match what I have against the Steelers.
That's true.
Certainly you're never going to win that battle, or at least as long as Roethlisberger is throwing the ball for you. But, we did the right thing. We got rid of Cora. So, we'll see how the next season goes.
I'm hoping not well for my sake.
Well, I will haunt you back when things look good for us.
I'll be ready. I'll be ready.
All right.
Okay.
All right.
So we're not talking about Boston sports and how horrible of individuals Tommy and Bill are and Alex are. I love they call Tom Brady Tommy. Hey Tommy. It's like it drives me insane. Okay. Tommy. I pack my car and have a yacht, right, Tommy? I can't. I'm sorry.
Stop.
Let's talk about creating content that actually targets user intent and not Boston sports.
Sounds great.
As much as I want to. Because
sounds great.
There's the idea of targeting user intent, and then there's actually doing that, and those are two very different things. And I'll speak from my own personal experience. I will have the best of intentions, pun intended. And I'll think about my audience. I think about what I want to write. I think about how Google looks at the intent behind what I'm trying to write. And then I sit down to write. And what it turns out to be is not what I thought it would be. The intent is off. The messaging is off. It's all a little bit off. And I'm wondering, despite our best efforts, why does that, in your opinion, why does that end up happening more times than not?
Sure. So I think there's a couple of barriers here, stumbling blocks. So, you mentioned research and targeting. Honestly, to date, or should I say historically, I still see a lot of writers or content creators who don't actually do that analysis up front. So they're not checking the SERPs. They're not understanding the language that customers or readers are using and what problems they actually want to solve. So instead, I see typically like a combination of assuming what the search language is, and the angle, as well as thinking that intent just means that you have the right topic without delving into the specific users, into the specifics users or searchers are searching, are looking for, or the type of content that they need or want, because I think that determines a lot of the framing that gets used, and can be severely problematic. So I guess really what that boils down to, the answer is that a non-existent or abbreviated research cycle is like the biggest barrier. I see another barrier being, writers or editors who are coming from traditional schooling backgrounds, either journalism or business writing, and they are adherent to styles that don't necessarily translate as well in search. And that can be problematic because they get hung up on things that are, archaic is too severe of a word, but old fashioned in terms of how people digest content today. They want quick, they want to be able to scan, they want to be able to get through. And then a third piece, is really like overthinking optimization and turning out content that is just horrible to read. And one other piece I think that really trips people up as well, depending on their backgrounds, is what I call marketing ease.
Okay.
And that is like marketing jargon or lingo.
Oh,
and,
yes.
That can be really difficult to parse. It doesn't match the language that people use when they're searching. And very often the only person that means anything to is the marketing individual of that, from that brand.
Yeah. I mean, that's amazing. It's so easy to fall back on that. It's easy to do. It's easy to create. Yeah. It's really easy. I speak from experience. I can speak only to myself when I do that, or I think I'm doing that. I always have somebody outside read it. Someone who has no idea about the product or no idea about whatever it is I'm writing about. And ask them, can you clearly and quickly understand this? Or is it just jargon?
Exactly. Yep. No, that's a really great way to look at it, because if I can't scan it and figure it out, what does everybody else think? The way that you market yourselves as opposed to the way people think about the problems or issues they're having are often vastly different.
So I'm wondering then, what do you do when you sit down to write something, whatever it is, from the research process to the writing process? How do you go about making sure that you're aligned in your strategy and you're aligned in the actual writing itself?
Sure. So first things first, obviously I need to understand my goal and who I'm targeting. And once I get beyond that point, one of the things I'm going to do before I start crafting actually is take an inventory of what I have in place already. By that I mean I'm going to look at the content that exists, and I'm going to make sure that I'm not rewriting something that doesn't need to be rewritten or just really needs an update. And then realize what my gaps are, what needs to be rounded out in terms of my coverage, because all these things should be interlinked and part of the journey and working together. Then what I'm going to do is, my subject matter expertise or my experience in the space is going to give me an idea, a rough idea or skeleton of what I need to create. So again, those gaps and matching my goal. And I'm going to build a rough outline based on that. And I'm going to have some gut expectations. And then I'm going to also have some competitive research. I'm going to have looked at what my direct and search competitors are doing. And I'm going to use tools like Keywords Everywhere, Keyword Tool.io, SEMrush, Moz. The list is really endless. I like them all for very different reasons. And I'm going to use the data from those to support my next steps and my final plan. So once I select keywords, I'm going to start looking at the SERPs in an incognito browser. I'm going to look at the features on page. I'm going to make notes about what I'm seeing before I actually dive into the links themselves. Do the results look ambiguous? Are they a mixture of things because Google sees that there are different needs versus one centralized focus? Or are they specifically decision awareness or consideration? And then I'm, again, back to the features, I'm going to note that. If there's a video carousel, then I'm going to make a consideration about whether I need to create a video in addition to my text-based content, or, maybe it's images. Are there questions from the people also ask section that I can pull into my content? And I'm going to add that to my outline. And I'm going to look specifically at the top ranking pieces and note what they have, how they're covering it, what they may be using for conversion tactics. And in addition to that manual review, I like using tools like Phrase or Market News. Phrase happens to be my favorite at this point to pull together some of that competitive data beyond my notes, including like the target length for my content. And again, not all of this is exact. It's really just to give me a guideline. I'm not gonna always hit that number exactly. And that's going to help me gauge what I need to do to beat the competition and ultimately build out my content briefs. So I'm going to work with that with my team, and then, we're going to iterate. Obviously reporting and analytics after that point is going to be important, and watching what that content does and coming back and addressing anything further as need be.
It's so funny that you say you actually go to the SERP and look at the SERP. I feel that so many people don't do that, and there's really no substitute at this point for doing that and seeing what does Google prefer, what does it not prefer, what other intents are being met, and to what extent are other intents being met, what's showing above the fold, what's not above the fold, that sort of thing. It's really valuable, and people just don't do it.
I know it's frustrating, but very often, whoever you're working with, sometimes the content creators will say, I don't understand why my content's not working. And then you go in and you do that kind of inventory / research process, and you can see these massive gaps. And it's like, well, did you look at the SERP? Because right here, I can see that you've either missed the mark wholly, or you're missing some pretty significant areas to cover. And I think, obviously, if you don't nail that, you're not going to be seen, and then maybe you have a great piece of content that you've crafted, but it's just not doing anything for you.
It's what's ironic is it's probably, from my perspective, the easiest, least time consuming thing you can possibly do.
Absolutely.
Which is ironic.
I know, you'll get, absolutely. It's so easy. And once you're used to it, it's a rote exercise. Immediately now, even when I'm searching as just my outside of SEO persona, I'm immediately able to tell whether the SERP is suiting my needs or not. And that's useful in terms of doing this research. And it's kind of hard to understand why somebody wouldn't.
We just love tools. We're a tool-obsessed industry, I guess, which is good for us because we're a tool, but that didn't come out right.
But the tool... Yeah, sorry.
No, I'm saying that's okay. No, I'm saying we're a tool. Like, it doesn't sound. We offer a tool. We are not tools.
Right.
Right.
And tools don't replace humans. It's a benefit. I love them. Look, I love having an arsenal of tools, but the reality is there's a human element there that matters, and you're serving a human. So why wouldn't you expect to have that additional layer to make sure that you're satisfying your buyers or your readers?
Speaking of things that tools can't do, and you mentioned CTAs, and it got me thinking, often enough, we'll write a nice piece of content. Let's assume that's really targeted towards a particular intent that makes sense, or a particular pain point. And then we write the CTA, and it's something as generic as "get started now," or "buy here," or "click now." And we don't create CTAs that actually align to what the beautiful content that we've already written. I'm just wondering what your approach is to making sure that the CTAs align to what you're doing and to your audience and to what you've already written and so forth.
Sure. So, and this is just a slight difference, but I think it's helpful in terms of giving better value to the user. But I actually like to focus on call to value versus call to action. So what is someone getting from from the content if they click through? Are they getting, and so I'll talk about this as the meta description, but also on page, same deal. It's the difference between giving them, something valuable versus asking them to do something. And I think that language can make a really big difference, and in success and obviously your metrics down the road. So I think, like, are you giving them a template? Are you giving them a trial? Are you giving them knowledge that ultimately helps them make a decision? Is it something exclusive that cannot be found elsewhere? I think that's actually the bigger win here and the bigger opportunity, and ensuring obviously that tone automatically is more specific versus generic, because you're focusing on what they get versus this vague, click here and, and learn X, or, hey, fill this form out, which nobody ever wants to do. Instead, you're saying, grab this trial that will help you, monitor your page speed, whatever,
Right.
Whatever the tool or application is, there's a better way to get them, and it's all tied to the value that you're offering them.
I like that. Never thought of it like that. I like that a lot. Not to put you on the spot, but could you offer an example of that?
Jeez.
Just, off the top of your head on one foot. I'll ramble on as I ask you this question to give you some more time to think if you want.
Yeah, sure. Go for it.
Because it's so hard sometimes to think, something like a free trial. It's very generic. There's not really much. What are you going to say? Get a free trial to get wonderful analytics? It's too long. It's a very generic thing you expect to see anyway. So how do you write something valuable that really piques the user's interest when it is something that's not really dynamic like that?
Sure. So I think it depends, obviously. Oh no, I did the SEO thing. I said it depends.
I have a line for that, by the way. This is not a nursing home. There are no depends here.
Nice.
Yep.
Nice. So, based on what your application is or your target audience, I think a good one is, if it's something that helps you position even your value for your department. So let's say you have we'll make up an application that really helps you with robust analytics, and maybe your target audience is SEOs. Then it could be something around getting your CMO bought into SEO by using this robust platform. And I know this is not crafted well because I'm doing it off the cuff here, but that's the kind of targeting I would expect. Is like, the value add isn't just the tool, but maybe it's the fact that you'll get your CMO totally bought into the SEO reporting and application within the business.
That's cool.
Something like that.
I'm just going to make a note about that. 1 second. Okay, let's talk about we spoke. You mentioned tone and CTAs on the page, and I'm wondering, as a writer, a lot of these questions are coming from me as a writer, not as an SEO, and
sure.
I find that when I think of it, it's one of those like weird Murphy's Law kind of things. If I focus too much on intent, or I focus very much on intent, I lose things like clarity of message. I lose things like tone. I lose things like overall design of the page that I'm recommending to the designer. But when I focus too much on the other ancillary things, if you want to call them that, like tone, design, and so forth, I lose intent a little bit. Do you think there's sort of a problem in doing one batch of writing, we'll call them writing metrics versus SEO metrics, or is there a way to balance both of them? It's like a left brain, right brain thing. How are you supposed to balance both at the same time? If I can ask that question a little bit more specifically.
Okay, so how to balance?
How to balance, because you have things like tone and you have things like clarity of message. Those are very much writing strategies. And then you have things like focusing on user intent, targeting your audience. Those are very much marketing or SEO sort of thing. We call them marketing sort of things. Right. And balancing both of those at the same time can be very tricky.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think the first thing to understand, not saying that you don't, but just in general here, is not losing sight of your audience. Because the reality is that if it is a poor experience, the way that it reads or the way they're able to interact with your page, it's not going to deliver, right? They're going to bounce or they're not going to get there to begin with because somebody else bounced before them. And I think, SEO will happen naturally if you've done that research phase and you're informing your writing ahead of time. Not to say that it's always going to go off without a hitch, like it's not always going to be easy, but taking into consideration all of those user experience, bullet points, like making sure that it's easy to read, that it's easy to navigate through, that readers can easily scan and get to what they need, like you've integrated subheadings, you've provided links to other supporting content. Again, the call to value or your value is present. And it's funny that you mentioned this earlier because I had this as a specific note, but like, have you had other people, including people from your audience, weigh in on your content pages? Like you obviously can't do that all the time, because you'd be caught in a never ending block of waiting for feedback and everybody's not going to do that. But those are the things I think that work well. And so having that iterative cycle versus, all right, I've written it. Now I need to go back, shoehorn a bunch of stuff in. It's more like do the research and analysis up front, craft some really great content, and then go back and tweak it and make sure that the experience on page with that content is good. I think those are the ways that you can make sure you don't lose sight of both a positive experience and miss out on intent as well.
Yeah, that's a really good point, by the way, about you shouldn't look to a third party or third person all the time. One, because a lot of people are very opinionated and you end up getting into that's a whole other story with that. But at the same time, it is time consuming. There was a lot of back and forth. And I think it's something where content writers or content marketers need to be self-aware and say to themselves, okay, this one is pretty much fine. This piece, I think there's something missing. Somebody should look at that. And that awareness to make that decision is not only going to save you a ton of time, it will just help you write better content.
Exactly. And then that's learning for you, right? And then that stuff starts to happen even more naturally as you progress through the other pieces, because you've had those conversations and you're retaining that information, hopefully, and applying at a later time as well.
I guess you could say that the ultimate skill for the writer is being self-aware, sort of like life.
Yes.
Right.
Absolutely.
Evidently not for the Patriots who keep doing the same thing over and over again when they cheat, but okay.
Oh my God, I'm going to have to bring up Roethlisberger.
No, okay, no, let's not. You win. He's a creep. He is a creep. He is such a creep. Although we have to give some credit, this whole Antonio Brown drama wasn't really his fault. And okay, if you don't follow sports, Antonio Brown is a total lunatic who went off the rails, and everyone thought it was my quarterback's fault and not his fault. But it turns out he's crazy, and it wasn't Roethlisberger's fault; it was Brown's fault. So there's that. We're getting down the wormhole again. Okay, jumping back into the real world, not the sports world. You mentioned ease of navigation, and that sort of got me thinking. I've been thinking about this for a while already. And it's when a user hits a landing page, let's say. It's the easiest case in my mind to construct. I always feel like, and this is me personally, I hit a landing page and there's always something missing about it. I don't know what it is. Maybe it's like a me thing. When I'm writing, when I'm looking at landing pages, I just find the whole experience just doesn't work. And I feel like in in an age where there's so much interaction on web pages. If you look at like the epitome of this would be, I don't know if you've ever seen Google's travel site.
Yeah.
So you go to the local finder, you look for a hotel, hotels New York City. You look for more hotels, you see the whole list there. And you look for more hotels after the first 4 that you get in the local pack, and you get an entire website of hotels or travel options. And there's so much interactivity there, interaction there between the user and the website. You have this filter, you input this, you input that, you choose this, you select that. And it's so much more interactive than, say, Travelocity, Expedia, Orbitz, whatever it is. And I feel like Google's onto something with that. When I hit a landing page and all I see is your message and I can't really interact with it, there's no media there in some way, I feel like it's falling flat, and I feel like we're just not connecting with users because we're just doing things the old way because we don't have a better way. Am I crazy, or is there something to what I'm saying? Don't answer the crazy part.
Yes and yes.
Yes.
No.
Okay.
So absolutely. I think like it harkens back to like the static, dry landing pages that you would either in the old school days, I'm old enough to remember this, drive people to from either pay-per-click campaigns or like newsletters, right? And your whole focus beyond getting them to convert is also to make sure they never go anywhere else. And so I think that became a bit pervasive, and I think you're on to it. I think you need to make sure that you're incorporating other elements, things like video or other storytelling elements on the page. Maybe they're just visuals. Something, again, that's engaging and has some level of value for the people that you're trying to help. And I think the thing that sticks with me a lot, and I really like how they position themselves, is actually HubSpot focuses a lot on delight. And it sounds a little bit corny on the initial pass of that word, or maybe it's just me, but I think that is a really good thing to apply to the way that people interact with your content, and really like all of your content is a landing page. So depending on how they're getting there, what are you doing to keep them there? What are you also doing to give them a positive impression of who you are and what you're offering? So again, I think coming back to things like visuals, rich media, video, and maybe, it's a link off to a podcast even, that gives them a better idea of what you have to offer them, is a positive experience and is going to start to build something with the people that are hitting your content.
Yeah. And I'm so guilty of not doing that. I think everyone's sort of guilty of not doing that to a large extent. Hopefully we'll change.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Look, like everybody's got umpteen number of tasks and 5 minutes to get it all done.
That's really what it is, yeah.
So I think you get, instead of doing fewer items better, we get trapped in this cycle of doing a million things, mess, somewhat good.
You've just described my life in every aspect of it. From writing to child rearing.
Right. We're all there.
That's right. At least I'm not alone.
No, definitely not.
Okay. So I have a fun little bit that we do, but before we get to that, I just want to end off, generally speaking, what are some of the aspects of considering or targeting user intent that you feel content creators are just missing the ball on?
Yeah, I think, again, as I mentioned earlier, I think that they don't get deep enough into the analysis of what is resonating by looking at those SERPs. I don't think, sort of what I mentioned a little bit ago, that they grasp the value of having content that builds that brand affinity or awareness and takes advantage of people who aren't yet ready to purchase or convert. And then, two other things that really I see quite a bit is a misunderstanding of like how serious or how dry content sometimes is, and that it doesn't need to be that way. That people can be serious SEOs, they can be serious technologists, and not be boring dullards, right? And so having having that middle ground where you're offering things of value but are still coming across like exciting, I think that's a hard balance, but something that gets missed a lot. And then the other piece to this is, unless you're in a tiny company where really, there's only a few people in total, missing the boat on understanding that decision makers, the group often ends up being larger than the person you think you're targeting. So have you created an experience or content that is going to resonate with them? And so with SEO, let's say SEO platforms, maybe it's the case of, crafting some items for the CMO or be helping people talk to the CMO. Maybe it's your CFO or just your controller, and then your content creators too, so that you can get everybody on board and do that easily, and also make it easier for, in this instance, the SEO to communicate this out. So essentially, creating content that supports all parties and the entire journey. And I know we say funnel a lot, and
yep.
I get it, and I like funnels, except that it's really not that linear. It's often more of a tangled mess of research and analysis before the purchase is made. I think those are some key items anyway.
Yeah, there's definitely this sense. I mean, that's literally why we created this podcast, because we said, well, there's a bunch of podcasts out there that are good, but we haven't really seen one until now, I hope, that sort of takes talking about SEO and gives it a little bit of life. And there's nothing wrong with a couple of jokes here and there. I don't mean you should put jokes into your content. Like, that's probably not if you're talking about the cure for cancer, you shouldn't make a joke. You should write serious content. But you can put life and you can put personality into things. Like, at the end of the day, the other person looking at the content, listening to the content, watching the content is a human being. And most human beings, other than Bill Belichick, have a personality.
Oh, Lord. Roethlisberger.
Oh, God. Gosh. Keep forgetting.
No, absolutely. It's about being human at the end of the day, and making that a priority.
Okay, so that's a good note to end on. I have a little fun game for us. I call it Optimize It or Disavow It. It's where I give you either two options that are really great and you're stuck choosing one good option over another good option, which is hard, or I give you two bad options and you're stuck choosing one crappy option over another crappy option, which of course is uncomfortable. It's like asking me, who do you prefer, the Patriots or the Red Sox? Oh my gosh. The Red Sox I would go with. But in a zero-sum world, would you create a landing page with a clear and crisp message that was not aligned to user intent? Or would you create a messier sort of page that wasn't as polished, well-designed, well-formatted, but the end of the day sort of kind of aligns to user intent?
Yeah, so because I don't know what the point of content is that doesn't align with intent, I'm going to have to go with that messier version and hope that they can get through it, because otherwise the content's never going to be discoverable anyway.
Right.
Unless its purpose is something like second click or a landing page or newsletter inclusion, it's just senseless to me.
That's fair. I agree. I mean, we all like polished, nice, shiny looking web pages, but yeah, it doesn't really make any sense. Doesn't make any sense. Like, people are not, at the end of the day, they're not dumb.
Yeah, no, absolutely not. And they wade through quite a bit, so I'd put my money on the messier one for sure.
Well, that was simple enough. And you didn't use, well, it depends, so that was good also.
No, I didn't. I stayed away from it depends.
That's great. I very much appreciate that.
You got it.
Okay. Well, I think that does it for this session. I really appreciate you coming on. It's a lot of fun. Thank you for putting up with my ribbing of the Patriots and then the Red Sox and Boston sports in general.
You got it. Thank you for having me. It was great, and we'll see you on the field.
Oh, we will. We will. No banking any garbage cans, by the way, please. Thank you.
Yeah. Stay away from the ladies.
Oh. I'll tell Big Ben. Always ask first.
Yeah, there you go.
Always ask first. All right, thanks, Jessica. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Have a good one.
Bye. And we are back to your regularly scheduled In Search SEO podcast. And in case you didn't get the moral of that story, the Red Sox and the Patriots suck. And that's one of the wonderful things about being the host of this podcast. I get the final word.
God, you are.
And that's not fair because she's not here.
Oh my God.
But it is what it is. All is fair in love and sports fandom.
Okay, Morty.
Patriots suck. That's the moral of the story. We can keep going down this rabbit hole.
No, please don't.
Or we can just do the news.
Let's do the news.
Are you sure? Are you ready?
Yeah.
Okay. So, Pierre, could you please hit it with the news?
Google says that they will delete unpublished Google My Business profiles if they are not verified within 30 days. So if you take your sweet time publishing, just know this.
Know this.
Yeah.
'Cause that would suck if you're kind of like, I'm not really good with time. I created it. I'll get to it later. And then 30 days later, it gets deleted.
Right.
Yep. Good for you.
Moving on.
Yes.
A bug that prevented you from verifying a property in Search Console using Tag Manager has been fixed.
And 5 new bugs have replaced it. Anyway, that was wrong.
Lovely, Morty.
That's
Okay.
true. Whatever.
Okay. Rumor has it,
Yes.
that Google is experiencing a bug, surprise, surprise, that is rejecting a lot of Google posts. It appears, though, that the issue is related to creators not following guidelines around images, such as not using stock photos.
But I don't blame the creators. One, and we had Greg Gifford on this podcast to discuss this.
Right.
It's very confusing what works with images for Google Posts, what doesn't. I mean, we discussed with Greg image size, right? And what size you should actually use. That's a whole complicated question. We'll link back to that podcast. Check that out.
Right.
But there's a whole bunch of guidelines about using stock images and about the words you have on in the image. Either way, okay, this is not new. Like, these aren't new guidelines. It just seems that Google started to implement them. Right. So this is, again, goes to Google not being good at communicating, sort of like me and my marriage.
Oh, God.
And what Google should do, unlike me and my marriage, is communicate and say, you know what? Hey, guys, like, we have not been on top of implementing our guidelines on images in Google Posts. So as of, I don't know, a week from now. Okay?
Yeah.
Or tomorrow, whatever it is.
Yeah.
We're going to get really strict. We're like 3rd grade English teacher strict on you.
You should know.
I would know. I was a 4th grade English teacher. And I was not strict. I was scary.
Right.
There's a difference.
Right.
I was really scary as a teacher. Anyway.
Shall we move on?
Yeah. So
Okay.
no, the point is they should have been communicated saying like, hey, we're gonna get on this. Be forewarned, as opposed to, is there a bug? Is there not a bug? What's Google doing? Oh my God.
Okay.
Not good for anybody.
Thank you, Mark.
Not good for anybody.
Yeah, okay.
Finally,
Google Maps has gotten an update in honor of its 15th birthday. New changes to the app include user-generated info on public transportation and more tabs at the bottom of the map to make accessing information easier.
Yay. And it's a really cool information. Like the subway thing is cool. Right,
Yeah.
they have a GIF that shows you how this works, but you can add in information about, like, is it really packed right now on the train? Is there a smelly guy who hasn't showered in like 5 weeks on the car here? Like, skip 3rd car, smelly guy, man spreading on the subway. Don't go near him.
That'll be useful.
Yes, that'd be good. Like, lots of man spreaders on this subway car. Go to car 4. That'd be great. That'd be awesome.
That'd be amazing.
That'd be a great thing if they had it. If they had a thing, like Google had a checkbox, or like, I'm on car 4. Checkbox. Is there man spreading? Check. Yes. My dad's a big man spreader on the subway, by the way.
Oh, no.
He really is. He spreads out. I'm like, Dad, come on, you can't do that. Anyway. Yes. Oh, fun SEO send-off question. Totally forgot.
Wait, you didn't thank me for the news.
Oh, I'm sorry. Thank you for the news.
You're welcome.
God. Whew. Want to get on your bad side. Okay, shall we? Fun SEO send-off question?
Yeah.
All right, folks, you're in for a treat as we have another fun SEO send-off question. This week, in honor of the Oscars, which we record Sunday morning, so it didn't happen yet.
Yeah.
Right, so by the time you hear this, the question might be somewhat irrelevant, but doesn't really matter. We're going to go with it anyway.
Yeah.
Okay, so here's the fun question. You ready? Just going by the nominees themselves.
Right.
If Google Were one of the nominated movies for Best Picture of the Year 2020 by the Academy Award, Oscars, whatever you want to call them, which movie would it be? And I don't know them by heart, and I have it on my phone here. Hold on. Okay, your options are Ford versus Ferrari.
Is that a movie?
Yeah, that's great. I actually saw that. That was a great movie.
Okay.
Jojo Rabbit.
Okay.
Joker.
Yeah.
Marriage Story.
Yeah.
1917, which I want to see and haven't seen. Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. Well, I got nominated. Okay. I am not a Tarantino fan, but I kind of want to see that.
Mm-hmm.
And Parasite, which I'm not sure I even heard of.
You forgot Little Women.
Oh, it's not here in the carousel. Google forgot Little Women. It's look here.
No, it doesn't make sense.
I believe you. I'm gonna check it. It's not.
No, first check.
It's
no,
not there.
I'm not sure.
It's not there.
Maybe it wasn't
Hold
nominated?
on. No. I think you're right. I think it was nominated. In the main, once you click on the featured snippet, you get Little Women.
Yeah.
I apologize for that.
Yeah.
Actually, Google should apologize for that. Oh, and The Irishman. So thank you, Google, for your carousel sucking.
Chauvinist.
Wow.
No, I'm kidding. Yeah.
Not me. It was Google.
Yeah.
All right. So if Google were one of these nominated movies, who would it be?
I would say Parasite.
Ow. Wow. Oh.
Think about it. It's
Go ahead, explain. No, you explain. Your answer.
Google is like a parasite.
How so?
I'm not explaining anything further.
Okay. Wow. I was gonna.
No, but also because it's the only movie that I actually watched.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
It's
a good movie. Go watch it.
I will. I'll try to watch it. What's it about? Tell me later.
Okay.
I'm gonna go with The Irishman, which I watched like an hour of and I fell asleep.
Oh God.
Yeah, but like Google's a gangster, extorting people. The usual stereotypes we say about Google.
Right.
You looking at me? Are you looking at me?
So we have Google as a gangster and Google as parasite. Nice.
Which is worse?
Nice.
We're a positive bunch here. Which we go with Google as Joker? Ooh, that'd be wrong. That would be nice. That'd be like he's a Google's psychopathic killer. That's terrible.
Actually, in Parasite, there's no actual parasite.
Well, that's ruined the whole movie for me.
Sorry.
Yeah. Maybe it's Marriage Story, which I haven't seen either because I don't know. Dysfunctional marriage is hit close to home. Not with my marriage, my parents. I should preface that. So yeah, maybe that. No, that's got a 95% Rotten Tomatoes score. So
I didn't watch it. I didn't know. So yeah.
Yeah, I've been watching Picard lately. We should talk about what I've been watching. That's been terrible. Anyway, that'll do it for this episode of the Interest SEO podcast. Keep in mind, new episode next Tuesday. Hopefully we'll see you there. And thank you so much for listening. It's been In Search because we're all in search of something. Toodles.